Bulawanaka, Fiji, and welcome to another week of Gold FM Speak Your Mind. And, today is Tuesday, September the 8th, and internationally, this is a recognized day dedicated to literacy in all its levels, and that's International Literacy Day. And here in Fiji, there's a special recognition of this by the Australian High Commission's Office and the Department for Foreign Affairs in the Australian High Commission, and are working alongside with the University of the South Pacific. And the Australian High Commission joins the Pacific Disability Forum in this International Day of Literacy, and in also highlighting literacy to people with disabilities. And they've partnered up to celebrate this on today, the September the 8th. Like I said, a day dedicated to literacy in all its levels. And I'm kindly joined by the manager for the University of the South Pacific's Disability Resource Center, Racheli Mbulatale. Welcome to the show, Racheli.
Thank you, Peveli, for having us.
And I'm also joined by Savita Devi, who is a visually impaired University of the South Pacific student. Welcome to the show, Savita.
Thank you, Peveli.
Now, I'm going to talk a little bit about the center and interest before we speak with you, Savita. And I'm sure that Fiji is keen to hear your story. But first, Racheli, the work with the Australian High Commission and the development of the center of the University of the South Pacific, this resource center. Tell us, when did this start? Not many people know about this.
Well, yes, thank you, Peveli. The University of the South Pacific, in collaboration with the generous funding from the Australian High Commission and DFAT, started the Disability Resource Centre in 2013 as part of strategic fund, a strategic plan funding from the Australian government. Mm-hmm. And so the Disability Resource Centre became fully operational on the 1st of August 2013. And we started off with 2 staff and 12 students. We've been in operation now since then, and we've had 5 semesters, and our numbers have grown to 30. And we provide all sorts of support services. For example, we have coordination meetings when students come and they disclose. Mm-hmm. And that has been one of our challenges for them to come first and disclose their disability. I guess in the Pacific, there's a lot of stigma attached to being labeled as a person with a disability. So disclosures is a front that we're still working to enhance. Mm-hmm. Because we have about 27,000 students on campus in the 14 campuses in the 12 member countries, mm-hmm. and 30 have come forward to disclose this semester, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you use global stats where they say 10% of every population persons with disabilities, you should be looking at about 2,700. Mm-hmm. So that I guess what's happening at the university is a snapshot of what's happening out there in the Pacific and in most developing countries. Persons with disabilities will not come forward to disclose because of the stigmatization, because of the other negative aspects associated with being labeled as a person with a disability. And then some, on the other hand, probably out of lack of information or lack of education, may not even know they have a disability. So there's all sorts of issues around that. We walk around the university, we see students' obvious physical characteristics, and then we walk up to them and talk about the Disability Resource Centre and the types of support services they can access, mm-hmm. but they will not disclose. No. Yeah, so, but to date we have 30 students. Mm-hmm. We've had 5 semesters of numbers of students coming forward to disclose. We provide all sorts of support services. As soon as a student discloses, like Savita, we pair them up with a buddy. So we have a buddy system who is sort of a social support initiative, who will help them with, just to get over the culture shock. I mean, able-bodied students come into the university and The first year is always a challenge because of the culture shock. You can imagine what it's like for a person with a disability.
It's really interesting that you mentioned this, that they're still having issues with the disclosures. Yeah? Obviously, even at the tertiary level, this is still something that we need to counter. And despite with all the education that we've been through, and they've gone through, these students, there's still that issue at tertiary level. Savita, I'm going to ask now, with you coming to, as you were in your earlier stages of your education, secondary school level, primary school level, did you had always aspired to want to be at tertiary level education, to get tertiary level education?
Yes. This was one of my ambition. First of all, my ambition was to go to FNU. But then, when I knew that there was no disability resource center, so I thought to myself, okay, right. And I heard that there's a disability resource center up here at USP. Then I planned to myself, okay, I'm going to USP. And from USP, I'll be able to maybe become a good English teacher.
Now, Savita, so you always wanted to be a teacher. What was it like with the support from your family, your teachers, in earlier education?
In early education, I would say that the support from my family, especially from my mom and dad, it was good because they fully supported me. From the time I was in blind school, when I was 5.5 years old, I was in the blind school hostel for the blind. From that time till date, and when I'm in USP, schooling and part-time working for Family Pacific, they are still supporting me.
Well, that's an exceptional support system that you have. Now that you're at university, at the USP, University of the South Pacific, what has the support like been from, not only from the Disability Resource Center, University of the South Pacific's Disability Resource Center, but from students in your class?
Well, the students in my class, I get good support from them as well, especially from my two tutors. This is Titilia Lendua and Mr. Bale Kuramboy. I get good support from them, plus our students, my friends who are classmates with me. Sometimes when I'm not able to understand something, they're whispering to me, just trying to explain me. Okay, ma'am is saying this. Despite me having a body, sometimes we also have to make friends with students so that they know how to deal with us persons with disability. So they whisper in my ears. I would like to tell you a short story. Just last week, Wednesday, I had classes from 4 to 6. It was LLP 1-3 English. And then the girls were whispering answers to me. But likewise, I knew the answer, but they were whispering answers to me. And then after the class, me and Titilia Lendo, we were sitting down, and Titilia Lendo said, and the girls, they were whispering answers to you. I wonder why. I said, no, ma'am, this is another part of socialization. Since that is one of my hobby, I love to socialize. So I was telling her, ma'am, this is part of socialization. So that's why I made friends with them, and that's how they were able to whisper answers to me.
Well, that's a great story, Savita, and I hope that with these stories that we get to hear from you, and also we'll talk a little bit more about some of the challenges too with the center at the University of the South Pacific, and also what the plans are for the future. Right after this short break here on Gold FM, Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Gold FM, Speak Your Mind, and we continue our discussion. It is International Literacy Day, and I've been joined in studio by our wonderful guests this morning, and Savita Devi, USP student and also visually impaired, but great stories that we're getting to hear from Savita about her classes, and also from Racheli Bulatale, the manager of the USP Disability Resource Center. Now, looking at the center, you've said that the growing number of students that are coming forth, and we also spoke on the issue of disclosure. And we didn't think, you'd think that with the center being made available, we didn't think that there'd still be disclosure issues. Huh? But it's wonderful that the University of the South Pacific have this. It's available now, and I believe the project is up. This is the final year of the project for 2015. Now, what is the plan from here?
Thank you, Pedeli. We began the center with a policy. The policy was in collaboration with the senior management and the heads of school. So, because there was a policy in place, it sort of gave that oomph to actually providing support services. Without a policy, you're just going to be talking about being disability inclusive. So, a policy is important. So you're not only just talking about it, you're actually walking the talk. When we began the center, it was just to provide access. That key objective of to be able to provide access to tertiary education for students with disabilities. And now, as we're coming towards the end of the strategic plan funding for the center, the focus has moved gradually from just providing access to mainstreaming. So whilst we provide support services for students with disabilities, there's also that underpinning rationale that ultimately you want to help them, empower them to mainstream themselves. Because out there in the real world, there's no disability resource.
That's exactly what.
So, like I'm pleased to share with you that we have 3 deaf students who are on a placement. They've secured placement with the university's ITES section. They're graduates. They've gone through their certificate in IT. They've gone to the diploma, and there's a 6-month placement. And those are the sorts of good runs on the board that needs to be highlighted. And it's not just accessing and providing support, but it's also empowering them to go out there and mainstream themselves and make a difference. And just having a person with a disability in an organization is going to help bring about that sort of multiplier effect. You need to be there to make a difference.
And it also helps on the working environment. Yes. It helps the workers in their development also, in understanding the needs of those.
Exactly, absolutely. It helps with sensitization, so people are aware that there are these other persons who may have physical disabilities, but they're just as bright as anybody else. They're just as talented. And that's the whole idea behind mainstreaming. So whilst we provide the support services, we try and get them in to access tertiary education, also the focus now is on mainstreaming and getting them out of just being supported to be able to go out there and self-advocate and make a difference in the various workplaces that they will hopefully find employment in, and also bring about change. If you have a few more CEOs talking about having a disability inclusive policy or a ratio of workers, the better it is for everybody. And we thank the Australian government for kickstarting this thing. So the plans ahead is you'd want to help students to mainstream so that it's not just support. So when they come in and they disclose, we have what's called a hand-holding phase. So there's 3 months in every semester. So the first month we do everything for them, write their emails, take them everywhere. And in the second month of the semester, it's fortnightly meetings. And in the third month, it's ad hoc meetings, and we have an exit meeting. So we gradually wean off the support services. And at the same time, all the messages, everything around the support services is about empowerment and going out there and self-advocating and, standing up for what they know is their right, because it is a right.
It is a right. Now, Savita, with you and your experience from when you were young, attending the special school for the blind, was it in Suba, Lotoka, or where were you brought up?
Actually, I'm from Lambasa. But
from Lambasa.
But this blind school, it is situated in Batuanga in Suva.
Okay, in Suva. Now, how did that help you? And let's talk a little bit about from secondary school and primary, all that the primary level and secondary school. How has that helped you build up to aspire for your aspirations on what you want to be an English teacher?
This has helped me because before, like, I did not know that we persons with disability we do exist. But when I was in blind school, then I moved on to DAV, and then I got to know that not only I wasn't the first person with disability to attend DAV. Before me was other 3 or 4.
Okay.
So this has helped me a lot.
And now with the support from the school, were the students very supportive? And what was your experience like?
In DAV, yes, the students were really supportive. Teachers used to give us notes, and they would expect the students to dictate the notes. So at times, students, they come when I'm free, when they see me I'm free, or when I ask them for help, they come and they dictate notes.
Okay.
So yeah, this
So
has.
you got a pretty helpful, you had a lot of help, I mean some help, but a lot of help from your fellow classmates, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, and I see from the stories that you've shared with us, also continued through to university. Like you said, it's all part of socialization.
Yes.
But you also have a part-time job, you mentioned.
Oh yes, I have a part-time job. I just started lately in November last year, because one of our treasurers from United Blind Persons of Fiji, late Moshmiati Kanarayan, she died. So she was working there before, and she died. So when she passed away, and they had no replacement who can look at my ability, who can host that program. So, and I was interested in the announcing part.
Okay.
So I loved to become an announcer. So I was telling one of my colleagues that who is now working in the West Bank is the president for Fiji Disabled People's Federation, Rakesh Chand. I was telling him, I'm very much interested in becoming an announcer. So he put me into this place, Femlink Pacific.
So you're part of the Femlink broadcasting team, yeah?
Yes.
The Suitcase radio team.
Yes. So I host the program Look at My Ability that happens every Thursday from 10 o'clock to from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Well, that's one of the benefits of having a specific show that's tailored just for you, yeah? Just along the lines for you. But again, we have another break looming. And again, I thank you, Savita, for sharing your story with us right here on Speak Your Mind. And we look forward to, hearing a lot more of you and the stories and as you pursue your goals. Is there any particular message that you'd like to, just issue to those who face the same situation as yours?
Do not let your disability be a hindrance to your interest. Whatever is your interest, you do not have to let your disability pull you down. But you can still go. You can work for your interest, and you can do self-encouragement and go towards your goal.
Thank you very much, Savita. And we take another short break here on Gold FM. Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Gold FM, Speak Your Mind, and we continue our special show this afternoon on, it is International Literacy Day, September the 8th, and we also feature on this program a special, program that's been, working in collaboration, the Australian High Commission with the University of the South Pacific, and they've set up the USP Disability Resource Centre in existence now for 3 years, and we are looking at also the work that the Australian High Commission's aid program has in recognizing, promoting literacy for all, and that is essentially promoting prosperity, reducing poverty, and looking specifically at learning in terms for those living with disabilities. We've already spoken with a young University of the South Pacific student, Savita Devi, shared with us her experiences, and also with Rachel Mbulatale, the manager of the University of the South Pacific's Disability Resource Centre. And we now are joined by a young man with special achievements already, Krishnia Sen, a youth advocate, a deaf youth advocate, and welcome to the show, Krishnia.
Thank you, Pedeli.
Now, Krishna, I'm going to have to ask you, from the beginning, right from when you started off with your education, what have been your challenges and how have you been able to, well, cope with these challenges that you've identified?
Thank you. Yes, I started school at the Singatoka School for Special Education. I then moved on to Hilton Special School, completed my high school education at Maris Brothers High School. Over those years, while growing up, communication has been a great challenge. Most of the time, I'm looking at spoken language. I'm watching people talk. It's very difficult trying to communicate with parents, with friends, and I've struggled along the years trying to get what they say. So what I used to do is I'd get books, the Fiji Times, newspapers. I'll try and read news articles. So after my secondary school here in Fiji, I got a scholarship to study a certificate in IT in New Zealand. That was back in 2009. And then I won a scholarship to study at the Gallaudet University. Now, this university is the only university for the deaf in the world. It's in Washington, D.C. I graduated last year, and I resigned last week from being a teacher, a computer teacher at Hilton Special School. And now I'm looking forward to doing my master's program in England.
Wow, you've achieved quite a bit too. There's some, for someone as young as yourself. How old did you say you were?
I'm 28 years old.
28 years old, and you've achieved all this. You're now ready to enter your master's program. Now, Krishna, I'm going to ask now, what are your friends, you've kept from high school? How have your relationships with your friends? Have you continued with this? Because with all that time that you spent also studying, how do you keep also with maintaining a social life? Do you have one?
Yes, my social life is awesome. It's great. I have great support. I have great friends and those that want to know sign language. And I'm happy. I'm always teaching them some signs. But my friends, yes, they are awesome. And I've kept the relationship. We are connected through Facebook and other social media.
Would you say that with the development of the technological advances, Facebook, social media, all this, has it helped a lot with your learning too? And do you think that is something great for young deaf students that are learning here in Fiji today?
Yes, definitely. For us, social media is very important for deaf people. This is how we get access to information. Without social media, we are not aware of what's happening in Fiji. This has also helped me to understand and know about the situation that's happening in Fiji, that's happening around the world, and it's kept me updated with current affairs. It's very important.
Would you say with in your terms of advocacy work for the people living with disability, especially for the deaf, does this also help with your work and also with better understanding perhaps of the world around for those who are still in perhaps secondary or primary school education?
Yes, it's helped us a lot, and it helped me as well. So this has made me become more skilled in my advocacy work and how I am able to be a role model to other young deaf students out there. For most deaf students, they know that they need somebody to look up to. So, for instance, I'm showing them that I can drive, they can do it as well. I can communicate with other people, they can as well. So this has been an eye-opener for everyone.
Now, what you're about to enter your master's program. What is your ultimate goal here in the work that you do and going to school, with all your achievements? What is it that you're looking at?
So I'm going to study, I'm doing my master's in human rights in London. So my goals has been to, when I return, I would like to work with an NGO and focus on human rights for persons with disabilities. For me, I think human rights is not yet at its advanced stages here in Fiji. So I'd like to have all people know about their access, their rights on education, on employment. So my goal is to lift the standard of, or to get them to know their rights so they're able to enjoy their life as a citizen of Fiji.
Now, with the work, you've obviously been working also with people, with deaf people here in Fiji. How do you find their understanding of their rights? What is, even in working with not only those students, but also in various parts of the country? What is their level of understanding of their rights?
From my experiences, they are not yet fully aware, or they do not know much about their rights. So I'd like to help them realize their potentials and to know that they can seek assistance to access their needs. So would like to improve on our awareness work throughout Fiji, and not only focusing on deaf people, but the whole disability community in Fiji.
Now, that's really great work that you aspire to do, and we are hoping that you come back from London. But right after this short break, we'll talk a little bit more about what are the work that you do here in Fiji, and what do you hope that the rest of Fiji understands about deaf people in Fiji. Right? Welcome back to Gold FM, Speak Your Mind. And, we continue our discussion with Krishna Sen, a deaf youth advocate, and also, as we also touch on, World International Literacy Day, September 8th it is. And, we continue discussion now with the situation, Fiji situation, on issues regarding the deaf, or, hearing impaired for some, but mostly they'd love to hear, us to refer to. Something that I'm also learning is the needs of the deaf in our country. Now, Krishna, what is your opinion about, what is available in terms of resources for those who are deaf in secondary school education, and also the tertiary institutions and in the workplaces? Do we have enough resource available? Is it conducive for the deaf people?
Yes. Firstly, I'd like to share the challenges we have here in Fiji. The greatest challenge is accessibility to communication. So how we'd like to, help them with their literacy skills. There is poor access to current and international affairs. The access to the information is limited, and the lack of resources to support the acquisition of signed and written languages. Literacy is a basic human right, and it is often denied to many deaf children from home. The primary issue in literacy and deaf children is one of access. Access to language, access to literacy, to interactions, and access to curriculum and other resources. So I feel we can overcome this. We can ask the government, we can ask NGOs, disabled people's organizations, and stakeholders to work together and create resources that is available for deaf people to make communication accessible for them. And the resources available to support the acquisition of the sign language and written languages. Example, I've made an ebook.
Okay.
This is a project that I worked on. I'll show you.
Okay, so that looks very interesting.
So this is a storybook, a signed story. I'm signing the story of what's happening there. The pictures are there, and I'm signing what this depicts. So I'm talking about a dog. A dog has been shown, and a dog house. So this is a good example we use. This is an ebook for deaf children. So this does not only benefit deaf children, it can also benefit the hearing children. So with babies who haven't developed their vocal system, they are able to use their cognitive processes here. They will watch and they're able to develop communication. This is the support of visuals, seeing pictures or watching videos. This is easy, and this is can be used in classrooms. Also, for people who have identified hearing loss and at earlier stages, this can be used to help them to communicate. It would be good to get a specialist when you're 5 years old, so you know that you have to send your children to school. So for instance, my mom took me to school when I was small, and we used to communicate using pictures and books, and we had our own signs. This helped in our communication. So this is an example for parents. They can use this example if they have deaf children.
Now, this is really interesting. Many who perhaps are going to be watching this evening, as you know, the community here in Fiji and in the Pacific Islands, we still do not, fully understand the capabilities of people living with disabilities, and especially the deaf in our communities. I'll be very honest, if you're looking at Fiji communities, the deaf are not considered to have the same abilities still. Yeah, and you're a perfect example of breaking that particular stereotype. And with that, Krishna, we hope that with this what you are pursuing and the levels of education that you hope to go and pursue in your masters, that you come back and be part of this whole attempt at trying to break that stereotype. And we'll discuss this further after this short break. But it's interesting with this ebook and that as a learning tool in itself. That you mentioned that it also is for those babies that could, for development skills, even with non-deaf babies. So that's a great learning tool for me also. I'm just finding this out now. So again, we will continue after this short break here on Gold FM, Speak Your Mind. Welcome back to Gold FM, Speak Your Mind. And, just before the break, we were chatting with, Krishna Sen, the deaf youth advocate, and, has aspired and has already accomplished quite a bit, proving, the stereotype for those who are deaf in our communities are wrong. And, well, that particular stereotype we hope to continue to break with his achievements. And I'll pose to Krishnia, who's headed, like he'd mentioned earlier, for further studies, a master's program, and in the field of human rights. Now, Krishna, what type of commitments are you hoping that government and private institutions make towards ensuring disability exclusiveness and also services and changing services for those with disabilities?
Yes, thank you. I'd like to share this with you. I think it's very important that NGOs as well as governments and other DPOs, disabled people organizations, should work together, and the government should invest in disability inclusive policies. They should also create policies that are compliant with universal declarations, example, the United Nations Conventions for Persons with Disabilities. And we also would like to set up committees that make up policies, and in these committees we would like to have representatives from the disability community, because we know well what our issues are, so we're able to bring it out to the forum, to bring it out and hope that this is implemented by government. And also I'd like to talk about accessibility and reasonable accommodation. Most times people are confused with these two terms. For accessibility, for instance, the teacher knows sign language and is able to directly teach to the deaf students. And for reasonable accommodation, an interpreter, a sign language interpreter, is used to facilitate the communication between the teacher and the students. So it's important to have accessibility, and this is a right for us. So we're hoping that training can be done for teachers on sign language as well.
Thank you, Krishna. That's, very comprehensive. And, I'm sure Rachel, who have, welcome back again, who've brought back in for this closing segment. Now, the University of the South Pacific's Disability Resource Center. Now, with what Krishna has said, I think it also engenders quite a bit of what the goals are of the center, but also looking at seeing, at this level, what is it that we've mentioned a little bit of the hopes of achieving with your students, but what's the direction now for the center?
Thank you, Pedeli. I agree absolutely about the importance of not only access for students with disabilities, disclosure, we've talked about disclosure earlier on, and mainstreaming. We're thankful for the latest announcement by the Australian Minister for Foreign Affairs, the Honourable Julie Bishop, in May 2015, when she launched the second phase disability inclusive development strategy, and that augurs well for the university. We see it as strengthening our support services for students with disabilities. We see strengthening of access into tertiary. We see that as a clear signal of the importance of getting the message out there that students with disabilities, persons with disabilities, can access tertiary education. It's their right, and the university, in its with the current leadership, is fully committed to enabling and strengthening this access, and not only for students here from Fiji, but also around the region. And as just sort of a matter of interest, out of the 30 students, we also have regional students who've come to the university from the Solomon Islands, from Samoa, from Tuvalu, Tonga, and so once this is in place and it's strengthened, we're very, very optimistic that it'll just grow from there, and we hope that all the other universities around the region will also commit to having disability inclusiveness policies that the University of the South Pacific has has in place, and that very soon it'll be sort of a natural thing.
Thing to have.
Yes, you don't have to say you need to do this because you have a policy. It'll be just a natural
part of having
expectation.
Exactly. Now, with these expectations, I'd have to say for those students who have all their abilities and complain of, certain restrictions to certain services that they may not have, we hope that they learn from these messages, be a little bit more appreciative of what they have. Now, even within those who are with disabilities, people with disabilities, there's still challenges because we have the Savita, for instance, from Lambasa. And we look at these types of these students, I'm sure, that are also coming through to the Disability Resource Center, already have certain things you'd say working against them. Would gender also play? Obviously, gender and financial status, perhaps, and being part of a community, perhaps in just geographically disadvantaged at that point. Are these also, I'm sure, the center are looking at these areas and trying to and improve in terms of allowing access to it? Yeah. Is there any what's the outlook of the center in terms of addressing these issues?
I echo Krishna's sentiments about what the center needs to do. We actually talk to our students. We have what's called a SAGA group, which is Student Advisory Group on Accessibility. They're the best people to tell us what's working and what's not working, and they come up with really sometimes very, very practical solutions to challenges, to barriers, things that you take for granted, things that you never thought of. And when we first set up the center, we said, we're going to do this thing, we're going to help set up the center. Well, 5 semesters later, it's been humbling to find that we've learned so much from the students themselves. We have the Vice Chancellor's Learning and Teaching Forum tomorrow.
That's right.
It's a whole day affair, and you're warmly invited to attend. And we have Ari Hazelman, who is a blind student from Samoa, who will be part of the student panel. It's never happened before in the university, so he's pioneering on that, in that end. And we see that more and more, that engagement from students with disabilities themselves, having their voices heard, being represented on committees, being represented in the student association, being out there, telling us what's working, what's not working, and negotiating their spaces and negotiating their workarounds and the solutions to the challenges that they face.
Thank you very much, Racheli, and good luck to the center.
Thank you, Pedro.
And just before we wrap up, on that same sentiment, Krishna, would you like to add your last message on the show this afternoon to the Fiji? What would you like to share with them?
Yes, I'd like to share that I would like to eliminate common misconceptions that people who speak well are perceived as normal. Sign language is a natural language that freely and comfortably fits in communicative needs of a community. Signing is mutually beneficial for the deaf community and the society.
Thank you very much, Krishna, for taking the time to join us this afternoon. And thank you again, Racheli. And, that concludes our show this afternoon on, International Literacy Day, and a specific look at the needs of those with disabilities in Fiji and also in the region. We thank you for taking the time for joining us. Join us again on next week's Gold FM Speak Your Mind.